Madam Chair, I have two action items now as a result of the amendment, and two information items for which I will introduce staff when the appropriate time comes, and they can make you smart on those items. The first item is the topic that seems to have garnered the most interest, which is the amendments to the SEMCOG's 2014 to 2017 Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP. The TIP governs how we spend money on over 500 projects, and before the amendment, $3.8 billion over the next few years. And those expenditures are meant to support our transportation system and improve it. It's intended to improve the quality and reliability of our transportation system, increase economic prosperity, reach a higher level of fiscal sustainability, broaden our access to vital destinations using the multimodal approach, make our communities more desirable, and protect our environment. Implementation of this program will help improve Southeast Michigan's quality of life. That's its intent. The amount programmed in this amendment increases the cost of the projects that we're doing in this period from $3.8 billion to $4.3 billion. The amendment includes several major things. It's advancing the phases of the I-94 and the I-75 projects referred to by most of our public attendees here today. Several projects didn't begin in 2013 as hoped, and those are being shifted into this new TIP period of time. And those include the M1 streetcar project, projects along Sibley, Hayes, and Van Dyke roads, and some others. This means they're being moved into this new TIP. Continued improvements to the trade corridor between the Blue Water Bridge and the I-94 I-69 interchange are included. And other roadside improvements, including a bike path along M5, streetscape improvements related to the M1 and the Woodford Avenue reconstruction projects, and the rehabilitation of the Cherry Lawn pedestrian bridge over I-96. There are also a number of administrative changes the staff has made that are in your package. The staff is required to analyze these TIP amendments to make sure they're consistent with our goals. The TIP remains constrained as to available revenues. An interagency working group comprised of SEMCOG, MDOT, the EPA, FHWA, and FTA have reviewed the proposed amendments and determined that all of these projects have already been analyzed for air quality conformity as part of the SEMCOG 2040 Regional Transportation Plan, and that the changes that are being proposed do not change the scope of these projects or the projected date that they are open to traffic. Therefore, a new conformity analysis is not needed. The Environmental Justice Review indicates that the impacts related to the implementation of the TIP remain balanced across our region, and these projects are consistent with the Regional Intelligent Transportation Systems architecture. Public involvement began on November 5th. To date, there are 8 comments plus the ones you've heard here today, and 1 resolution. I'll tell you what the gist of those were. 3 of the comments focused on the I-94 project. 1 requests that any of the bridges on I-94 connecting Midtown, Woodbridge, and the New Center should not be removed. Another comment does not want to see I-94 widened, particularly in the addition of the service drives. The 3rd comment does not want to see I-94 widened on the east side, preferring that transit be considered there instead. 2 comments and a resolution were opposed to both the I-94 and the I-75 projects. The first comment was in regards to the M1 rail project, wishing it was extended further north up Woodward to 8 Mile. The second comment urged SEMCOG to seek out additional revenues. And then there was a resolution from our friends in the city of Royal Oak, copies of which are at your tables, that asked that the I-94 and I-75 projects be excluded and funding be redirected towards other needs. So with all that history, Madam Chair, I move that the motion to approve the resolution to add or change the scope of 57 projects and delete 12 projects from the fiscal year 2014 to 2017 TIP program for Southeastern Michigan be adopted.
Okay, we have support of that motion. Is there any discussion? Lisa?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll speak without a mic because I'm going to stand up and project my voice. So I stood here in April or May in this room and advocated against the funding of the widening of I-94 and I-75. I felt it was wrong at the time. In June at the General Assembly, I also spoke out against the widening of I-94 and I-75, voted against it at the time. and I'm here today to do the same thing if we move forward with voting on those projects today. I understand that in addition to I-94 and I-75, the US-23 widening project is also in there. We had a presentation, our working session chair is here. We had a presentation at working session about the US-23 widening. They're calling it a shoulder. They're creating a new shoulder that's only going to be used during peak hours. I don't care how you package it. It's a lane addition, it's a widening, and I firmly believe that if you build it, they will come, and we will have more suburban sprawl, we will have more de-urbanization, and as a young person, I think this was mentioned by many of the speakers here. As a young person, that is not the direction that I see our region going in the future. I can't be associated myself with expanding any of these three expressways, and so I will be voting against it should we choose to move forward with it today. However, I believe in the work that staff does. I love the staff at SEMCOG. I think they have a great director. I've had the opportunity to speak with many folks at MDOT about this issue and the issues that I have with this project. So I would like to make a motion that we postpone the highway expansion components for I-94, I-75, and US-23 and vote on the full tip and separate those three items out for a vote in the future for further work with the community, assessments, and review of these projects.
Yusuf, are you making an amendment to the motion or a substitute motion?
Let's call it a substitute motion.
Support.
Could I have your name, please? I'm sorry,
Elaine Zach, Oakland County Commissioner.
Elaine Zach. Okay. Is there any discussion on the well, first we have to vote on the substitute motion, correct? Is there any discussion, though, on the substitute motion? Bob?
Madam Chair, we've been discussing this for quite some time, which is why the issue is before us today. And one of the big things about SEMCOG that is fair is that we do have discussion. We have a lot of time. I don't want to put this off anymore. And for anybody that doesn't believe that, I think we should take a look at the op-ed that was put out for that everybody's table, talking about what the governor signed a year ago in Lansing, and our folks up in Lansing have failed to do a thing. It's time for us to do these things, not to push them off. So I stand in favor of voting on it today.
So you are against the substitute motion. Any other comments?
Yeah,
Vice Chair James?
I'd like to speak against the substitute motion. In June, I voted against this whole area. I spoke one way, I voted no. This time I've changed my vote, and there are a couple of reasons for it. There will be an international bridge that during the next 3 to 4 years will come through here. When it does, some of the traffic will go north, some of the traffic will go south. I had an opportunity, along with some of the other members of the executive committee, to see what other regions were doing. The Toledo region has a big investment and is heavily involved in grabbing the trucks that go through its area and getting them to reprocess, repackage. They are creating jobs. When you get these instant deliveries, they're being reprocessed someplace else. When that bridge is open, Detroit, Hamtramck, Hazel Park, Madison Heights, adjacent to I-75 especially, will have opportunities to take unused facilities and use them in a better way. Jim talked about the lack of walkability, and many of you have talked about the lack of walkability. For 40 years, as we've had expressways built and expanded, they have divided and destroyed communities on each side. We talk about Midtown. Midtown south of the expressway is vibrant. Midtown north of the expressway is a disaster. They can't figure every block, whether if you're on John R. whatever street, it's either a stop street, a stoplight that works some days and doesn't work another day. Tech Town is wonderful. Its access from the Wayne State University, walkability-wise, is very, very limited. I've suggested at least to MDOT that they build some walkability bridges. Now, they have dollar restrictions on how much they can spend. And I've suggested that they look at Kresge and we make some of these areas a linkage so that we've got walkability that goes two ways and we are a national model, not a national disaster. As it relates to I-75, there are two communities that have heavy skin in the game, Madison Heights and Hazel Park. I've talked to both of those communities, and they are working with MDOT, and they're comfortable with what's going on. Royal Oak has virtually no benefit from the expansion. At the same time, they're going to have an expense. And Detroit can't afford it, Hamtramck can't afford it. And one of the things that will come up later is that instead of a city having to put a match on one of these state expansions, that the state itself use their money and it not come out of our local PA 51 or county PA 51 money, but it come out of their money. So that when those things occur, it's another story. But I'm pleased by the fact that we may have the ability, if we work forward, I would like to capture the funds so the damn trucks do move through us, but we pick up a new set of jobs. It is unbelievable in the Toledo area how much they're picking up. We have empty space, it's never going back to manufacturing. I hope you defeat this amendment and I hope you support the main motion.
Thank you. Other discussion? Steve?
Hi, Steve Williams, Livingston County, and it's kind of ironic that mine is the only county that's not mentioned in the of all the SEMCOG counties we're at. But while I'm not going to talk about I-75 and I-94, I am going to talk about US-23 because I know US-23 very well. I've known it for years. That highway should have been expanded to 3 lanes all the way from M14 up to IM59 20 years ago. I was actually working at the Ford Rawsonville plant just east of Ypsilanti at that time, and it was congested then. I was back to working in that area, working in Ann Arbor in the city before the 9/11 attacks took me away for a while, and it was a nightmare. Fortunately, now every day I drive by that nightmare on I-96 and I see how congested and how packed it is. Now, in this case, that congestion, you know, this is north and south. This isn't moving out from the city of Detroit. This is congestion that's there on the perimeter. And I am not an anti-carpooling or anti-mass transit person. We have to deal with the Wally issue as county commissioners. If there was a way to fund it, I'd be happy to have Wally there. I carpooled for many years to Allen Park. I carpooled to Flint. I carpooled to Lansing. It just is not going to be enough to reduce that congestion on US 23 the way it needs to be reduced. That road is a nightmare. It needs to be fixed. And it's not just for the commuting public. What we forget about is something that Mr. Jenks mentioned, is its industry as well. US 23 is a major artery coming into the state from the south for tourism and manufacturing and agriculture, our 3 biggest industries. They need that, and those truckers and those tourists and all those people in their big old RVs that are going north to spend money in UP or Upper Lower Peninsula do not like to sit in traffic for hours and hours and hours, and that discourages them from coming into our region and spending their money here or doing their other business here. So it's not just about commuting, it's not just about urban sprawl. Something else that nobody mentions is we talk about the economy, we focus on jobs, but those same freeways that, you know, may have helped lead to urban sprawl, may have allowed people to flee the city, also allows those people who can't sell their homes and lose their jobs a much greater geographic region to be able to job hunt in. Okay, so that means whenever you look at applying for a job, you have to determine how much your day is going to take. And if you don't have to take surface streets, that means you can travel 30, 40, 50 miles to get to another job instead of only being able to travel 20 miles. That means that those people are possibly able to stay in our region instead of taking jobs out of state. I bet everybody in this room has lots of friends and family that have left the state or have kids that have left the state because they can't find jobs here. One of the features that's not mentioned is that this allows people to stay here longer in a much broader base for their job search as well. And I would like, and of course, being in Livingston County, we travel to most of the Detroit suburbs. 60% of our population travels outside the county every day for work. So we use those. Those people like to remain where they are. They like to stay within the state of Michigan. Without that access, they wouldn't have nearly the potential that they have to reach all those different parts of our Southeast Michigan region. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? This is on the substitute motion. Mike Sedlak?
I just want to continue and take a different perspective on the US-23 enhancements. It's more than just a relief of traffic congestion, more than just widening on a temporary basis through the shoulders. It's also going to relieve the unsafe entrance and exit ramps, which are the cause of many accidents on US-23. And I know this on a personal level because I'm a captain on Green Oak Fire Department and medical Livingston County Ambulance that has to respond to the accidents on a regular basis on US-23, in and out of Livingston County. So this program that they're proposing would eliminate a lot of that congestion by redoing many of these entrance ramps. The carpool lots on US-23 are full on a regular daily basis all up and down US-23. So obviously people are carpooling, but there's still a congestion issue. Wally's a good start, but it won't solve the problem even with projected ridership. So I would be opposed to the amended motion, if you will, or the substitute motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aye.
I'm sorry, is your name Doug?
No, Andy Labar, Washtenaw County, and I'd speak in support of the motion. I think we'd ask for 3 months, something like that, to continue thinking about this, to continue trying to come up with perhaps a different solution. I don't want to in any way not give the thoughts that have been expressed and the concerns enumerated their full respect. They are valid. But I feel like fundamentally we are trying to address the problems that we've created by continuing those problems into the future. And I just don't see how that's going to, as a region, get us where we want to be 10, 20 years from now. And I think in 2 decades, in this room or wherever SEMCOG is located, we'll have this same sort of discussion if we keep going. To ask for a bit more time to consider it, I don't think is crazy. And so I'd speak in support of it, and I hope you would listen to that and support it as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see any other hands, but I'd like to ask MDOT, representative from MDOT, if we delay this vote, what will the results be? Could someone answer that for me? Someone from MDOT? You can, yeah, come up to that podium.
Again, my name is Tony Cradfield. I'm the region engineer for the Michigan Department of Transportation. I can't speak so much for the US-23 project because that's outside of my region. Regarding the I-75 and I-94 projects, if you delay the decision, it delays our ability to do any of the analysis or discussion with stakeholders on any of the issues that have been taken up. We basically need to allocate the money and be able to proceed with further steps.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Call the question.
Call the question. The question's been called. This is going to be a vote with our clicker. We're on the substitute motion. And that is against the main motion that we are voting not to move forth the tip.
Point of order, Madam Chair?
Yes.
We've got to call the question. No, we have to vote on
Right,
that.
I'm just checking to make sure people understand what question we're calling.
A yes
Okay.
vote will what, and a no vote will what?
A yes vote means that we will not support the tip.
Can I clarify that?
Sure.
So my motion was that support the full tip other than the 3 improvement projects and take those 3 expansion projects and postpone them. So yeah, a yes vote would be a support on the full tip and a postponement of the 3.
Okay, so then it is an amendment, not a substitution. You're amending the
I
motion.
apologize for the.
Okay, so, all right, so I'm glad that we clarified this. The only part that you're keeping out is
The 3 expansions.
the 3 expansion issues. The rest of the tips move forward. So we're voting on the amendment, and there's a call to question. Right, I am, but I just want to make sure we understood what the question was that we're calling. Okay, so it is an amendment. There's a motion to call the question. Do I have support?
Support.
All those in favor of calling the question, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay. I think that by voice vote, that sounds like that passed. So, we are voting on the amendment, meaning to remove the widening projects of I-94, I-75, and 23, and passing the remainder of the tip. While the timer is showing on the screen, press 1 to vote yes, and 2 to vote no. Okay, the vote is yes 7, no 24. And for the weighted vote, thank you, the weighted vote is yes 318, no 1440.
Madam Chair, call the vote on the original.
The motion
Original
is
motion.
defeated. That amendment was defeated. I'm sorry?
Call the vote on the original motion.
Call the question on the original motion. We have support over here. The original motion is to put forth the tip. All those, with the timer showing on the screen? Oh, but we're voting on the calling of the question. All those in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
I'm going to see a show of hands, please. If you are in favor of calling the question, please raise your hand. Opposed, no. Okay, so it does pass. We are now voting on the original motion to approve the tip, and we had a second on that. So while the timer is showing on the screen, please.
Quick point. Is it possible to vote, to take a separate vote on the highway expansion and on the full tip?
No, that's what your substitute, that's what your amendment
No, my
tried to
was
do.
postpone them.
But I think that that's the same thing.
Okay.
I think that's the same thing. The intent was the same thing. So, while the timer's on the screen, we have to reset it. Sorry. Okay, now, are we ready, Grant? While the timer is on the screen, please press 1 to vote yes and 2 to vote no. Vote is 24 yes, 7 no, the weighted vote. 1340 yes, 385 no. So the motion is passed. Now I will call on our Executive Director, Paul Tate, to present the item we added to the agenda. Paul?